Hello, everyone. It's been a long time since I did a live stream. This is not a live stream, this is pre-recorded because it's going to be quite long. I've been wanting to do this for a while. For the last few years, around New Year's, I've been wanting to read Gawain and the Green Knight. Gawain and the Green Knight is a piece of Middle English literature that is near and dear to my heart. I focused on it when I was in grad school, and it is a story that takes place over Christmas and New Year. So it always seems appropriate for me to read it at that time. But I never got around to it. But since this is the year of the Great Plague, and I've already done some live streamed Beowulf at the beginning of the year, it seems like a nice way to wrap this up is to share Gawain and the Green Knight with you. The text that I'm going to be using is J.R.R. Tolkien and Evie Gordon's transcription from the manuscript. It's not necessarily my favorite, but it's copyrightless, so it's free. On the YouTube version of this, I will put the link to the full text down below, so if you want to follow along, you can. Gawain and the Green Knight is divided into 4 sections, and so this performance video off-the-cuff reading of Middle English is going to be divided into 4 parts. So they're a bit long, so watch as you will, have it in the background while you're doing some sewing. I know I love to do that. So yes, the entire thing is going to be in Middle English. I haven't practiced it. A few caveats. Gawain and the Green Knight was composed around the same time as Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. But because it's in a Midlands dialect, it seems older. It's not actually older. It's contemporaneous with Chaucer, but it seems older. It's been a while since I've read it. It's been a while since I've done Middle English out loud. I've mostly been doing Old English these days. And whenever I read either Old English or Middle English aloud, my accent gets a little Scottish. It's not necessarily fully accurate. So don't look to this at accuracy. It's very long, so I didn't sit down and practice every single word. This is off the cuff. And so I hope you enjoy. Gawain and the Green Knight. Passus 1. Sithen the siege and the assault what says it at Troy, the boar Britain and brent to Brondes and Ascus, the took that the tramus of treason there wrought, what's tried for his treachery, the truest on earth. It was Aeneas, the Athel, and his here kinde, that sithen depressed provinces, and patronus become wellness of all the well in the West Illes. For rich Romulus to Rome riches him swither, with great Bombus that burr he biggest upon first, and nevernes hit his own nome, as hit now hat. Tyrius to Tuscan in Tildus beginnus. Langoberde in Lombardy lift us up homes, and fare over the French flood Felix Brutus, on money bunkers full broad Breton hesettes with wune. Where were and rack and wonder, be soothe hats want therein, and oft both bliss and blunder, for sket hats skifted sinne. And when this Breton, what's bigged be this burn reach, bold bredden therein, bearet that loften, in money turned tima tenna that rochten, more fairliess on this folda han fallen hereoft, than in an author that he wot, sin that ilk tima. But of all that herbult of Breton kinges, I what's Arthur the hendest, as ye have heard tell. For thee an onter and erdi atel to show, that a selly in sicht summa men hit holden, and an outrage a winter of Arthurus wondrous. If ye will listen, this lay but on little while, I shall tell a hit as tit, as ye in tune herde, with tongue, as it is stad and stoken, in story stiff and stronge, with lel letters loken, in lawn so hats been long. So, thus far, we have a standard way of opening a tale, creating a heritage for England by reflecting back on the siege of Troy and making different connections between different countries and saying who mythologically built them. This is a very standard thing in both medieval literature of the time and particularly Old English, Middle English literature, because Arthurian literature in particular is significantly French dominated. What's really fun is working from the J.R.R. Tolkien and E.V. Gordon transcription. J.R.R. Tolkien has the same instinct in making Lord of the Rings to create a history for England, a mythology that was not relying on someone else's mythology, because his opinion was that Arthurian mythology was too French, which it varies. We also have a first-person narrator, but he gives credit, she gives credit, to having heard it elsewhere. Creating your own ideas was actually not the done thing at this time, even though this is an original tale. So, let's carry on. This king that at Camelot upon Christmas, with mony lovely slore, laid us of the best, reckonly of the rounde table, alla the rich brother, with rich revel or richt, and reckless mirths. Their turned talks by Tima's full money, justed full jollily, these gentle nichtes. So then carried to the court carolus to Maca, for there the fest was illich full 15 days, with all of the met and the mirth that men could avise, such glam and glay glorious to hear. There din upon day, dancing on nichtes, all what's hap upon hay and hallas and chambres, with lordes and ladies as lavest him thought. With all the well of the world they wanted their salmon, the most cute nichtes under Christus selven, and the love locust ladies that ever leave hadden. And hey, the comlocust king that the court held us, for all what's this fair folk in her first age on Scylla, the hapnest under heaven, king hiest amon of Willa, hit were now great need to Nevin, so hardy a her on Hila. Camelot at Christmas time. Well, New Year, what so yep that it was new comin', that day double on the des what's the doth served. For the king what's comin' with nichtes into the holla, the chantry of the chapel shaved to an ende, lewd cry what's their cast of clerks and other, nowel, nated anew, nevened full oft. And sithen reach forth running to recha Honsella, yed years gifts on here, yelled him behind, debated busily about the gifts. Ladies laughed full loud, though they lost hadden, and hey that one what's not wroth, that may ye well throw. Alles this mirth they made into the met Tima, when they had washen worthily thou whiten to sette, the best Barnaya buff, as hit best seemed, when Gwenor, full gay grathed in the middes, dressed on the dare dais, dubbed all about, small sendal beseedes, as to lure her o'er of tread Toulouse, and tars tapest enough, that were embroidered and betten with the best gemmas, that meet the pride of priests within pennies to buy, in day. The comlocus to descry, their glent with iron grey, a simulacre that e'er he saw, so mocht no man say. So we're seeing now thus far, specifically this is a New Year celebration happening right now. It's actually one of the earliest attestations of gift-giving at Christmas in English literature, and Guinevere, Gwenor, sits in the middle of it, gloriously surrounded by silks and gems and just fully embodying the glory of Arthur's court in its first age. But Arthur would not eat till all were served. He was so jolly of his joyfulness and somewhat chilgered, his leaf licked him leet, he loved the lass, other to long leer to long sit, so beseed him his young blood and his brain wielde, and also an other manner made him eke, that he through noble had nomen, he would never ete upon such a dare day, ere him devised were of some aventurous thing, an uncouth tale, of some main merveil, that he might trow, of alderus, of armas, of other aventurous. Other some sage him besought of some sicker nicht, to join with him in justing, in jeopardy to lay, laid leaf for leaf. Lev uchon other, as fortune would fulson home, the fairer to have. This was the king's countenance where he in court were, at which fair and fest among his fray many in Halla. Therefore, of fast so fair, he steadily stiff in stalla, full yept in that new year, much mirth he was withal. So Arthur is a good king. He doesn't eat until everyone else is served, but this is also a young Arthur, so he's done something a little bit silly. He said he's not going to eat at all until something adventurous or marvelous happens. Arthur is tempting fate. Thus there stond as installed the stiff king hisselfen, tugged before the high table of trifles full hende. There, God Gawain, what's grathed Gwenor beside, and Gawain a ladur man, on that other side sittes, both the king's sister sons, and full sicker nietes. Bishop Bodwain above beginneth the table, and Owain, Urin's son, ate with himself. This were dicht on the dice, and there worthily served, and sithen mony sicker sage at the seedboardes. Then the first course comes with cracking of trumps, with mony banner full breet that there be hanged, new nacren noise with the noble peeps, wilde werbles and wit wackned lotte, that mony hert full here hefet her touches. Dante's driven therewith a full der mates, for soon of the fresh, and on so fell dishes, that pina to finde the place the people beforn, for to sette the silverin that Ceres was halden on clothe. Each lady as he loved himself, there laughed without an loath. I too had dishes 12, God bear and bricht wine both. An important thing to note here is both Gawain and Gawain, brothers, are mentioned. They are both nephews and heirs of Arthur, and depending on what tradition we're following the closely, most likely Gawain is Arthur's heir at this point. Now, will ye of our service say no more? For which we may well wit no want that there were, and other noiseful noon need believe, that the lewd meete have lively flooded to catch, for anetha what's the noise not a wheel saist, and the first course in the court kindly served. There hallas in at the halle door an aglich master, on the mold on measure here, for the swearer to the swanga so swear and so thick, and his lindes and limbs so long and so great, half it ta'en in airy hope that he were, but mon most he alget mean him to bane, and that the merriest in his muckle that me threede, for of back and of breast all were his body sterna, both his womb and his wast were worthily small, and all his features full yonde, in the form that he had full clean. For wonder of his hue men hadde, set in his semblance sane, he fared as frake were fade, and over all enker grain. The Green Knight has entered the hall. A half-giant, but a handsome man. And all grathered in grain this gom in his wades, a straight coat full straight that stick on his cedars, a merry mantle above minsked within, with pillar paired apart, the pane full clean, with bluthe blonner full bricht, and his hood both, that what's lacht fro his lockes, and laid on his shoulders, him well halled hose of that same, that spinnet on his spoiler, and klein spurs under, of bricht golde, upon silk borders bard full rich, and shoulders under shankers there they shall crides, and all his vesture verily what's klein verdure, both the bars of his belt and other blythe stones, that were richly railed in his array klein, about himself and his saddle, upon silk werkes, that weren't a tore for to tell of trifles to have, that were embroidered above with breedes and fleece, with gay gaudy of grain, the gold eye in middes, the pendants of his patror, the proud cropper, his molaines, and all of the metal enamelled was then, the stirrups that he stood on stained of the same, and his arsons all after, and his athel skirtes, that ever glimmered and glent olive grain stones, the full that he fercus on feen of that ilk, certain, a grain horse, great and thick, and stayed a full stiff to strain, in broad and bridle quick, to the gom he wats full gain. Well gay what's this gom gerard in grain, and the hair of his head of his horse swayed, fair fanned facts unfold as his shoulders, and much bared as a busk over his breast hinges, that with his heelich hair that of his head reaches what avest all in butorna above his elbows, that half his arms thereunder were hatched in the wease of a king's capados that closes his swire, the mane of that main horse much to hit like, well crest and kemmet, with knots full money, folden in with fildor, about of the fair graina, I a herl of the hair, an author of gold, the tail in his topping twinin of a suit, and bounden both with a band of bricht grain, dubbed with full derastonas as the dock lasted, so then thrown with a thrall not aloft, their money bellas bull, bricht of Brenda gold rungen, such a full upon fold, ne frake that him readus, was never seen in that sala with sicht or that tema with eye. He looked as light so licht, so said all that him see, hit samed as no mon mecht under his dintes drea. The Green Knight has been given 2 full verses describing what he looks like, and there's 2 takeaways here. He is entirely green, as is his horse. His hair and beard are wild, but his clothes are courtly and possibly even fashionable. He is a conundrum of the wild meeting the civilized. Whether had he no helm ne halward neither, ne no pieson no plate that pented to armes, ne no shaft ne no sheld to shoe ne to smeet, but in his own hand he had a hollen bobbe, that is gratis and green when graves are bare, and an axe in his other, a hoge and unmate, a spetto sparth spon in spelle coso micht, the length of an elnyard the large head had, the grain of olive grain stale and of gold hewen, the bit burnest brecht with a broad edge, as well shapen to share as sharp razors, the stale of a stiff staff the stern hit be gripped, that what's wounden with urn to the wanda's end, and all begraven with grain and gracious works, a lace lapped about, that looked at the head, and so after the helm hatched full oft, with tread tassels thereto tatched enough, on buttons of the brecht grain braiden full rich. This hathel held us him in the hall entres, drivended to the head dese, dut he no worth, hell said he never won, but here he overlooked the first word that he warp. "Where is," he said, "the governor of this ging? Gladly he would say that sage in seat, and with himself spake reason." To Knichtes he cast his eye, and railed him up and down. He stemmed in constudie, quo what their most renown. Notably, the Green Knight does not come in armor. However, he comes armed with a holly bob and an axe, not a knightly weapon, though it's a very nice axe. It's entirely green and gold and dressed with buttons and laces. And he's looking for the person in charge. There was looking on length the lude to behold, for each one had mere veil what it men meet, that a hathel and a horse meet a such a hue latch as grow grain as the grass, and grainer it seemed, than grain a mail on gold glowing the breachter. All studied that there stood, and stuck him near with all the wonder of the world that he were shoulder. For fella Celius had they seen, but such never are. For the fortum and ferry the folk there had deemed. Therefore, to answer was our money athel freke, and all stoned at his steven and stonstel Satan. In a swonge silence there the sala reache, as all were slipped upon sleep, so lacked hor lotus in here. Edim had not all for doot, but some for courtesy. But let him that all should lout cast upon that weir. Silence over the court. Then Arthur, before the here deus that adventure behold us, and reckonly him reverenced, for rad was he never, and said, "We welcome me wees to this place. The head of this hostel, Arthur, I hat. Licht luflich adoon, and lenga, I they pray, and whatso thee will, is we shall wit after." "Nay, as help me," quoth the hathel, "he that on here sitters, to one any while in this one. Hit was not mean ernde, but for the loss of they laid is lift up so here, in the birch and the burnest best are holden, stiffest under stelgera on steadest to read, the wichtest and the worthiest of the world's kinde. Brave for to play within other pure like us, and here is cute courtesy, as I have heard carp, and that hat's waned me hither, Iwis, at this time. Ye may be seker be this branch that I be herich, that I pass as in pace, and no plicht sage. For had I founded in fear, in fetting wiese, I have a holberg at home, and a helm both, a shield and a sharp spear, shinnend bricht, and other weapons to wielde, I wen a while else. Before I would know where, me wades are softer. But if thou be so bold as alle burnes tellen, thou wilt grant me godly the gomen that I ask be recht." Arthur kon on sware and said, "Sir Cortes nicht. If thou crave battle bear, here failest thou not to feat." So Arthur has greeted the Green Knight, and the Green Knight has insisted he is not there for war. If he was there for war, he has shield and armor and more than enough armaments at home to come dress for battle. He is here for the gomen, for a game. Nay, first, no feet, in faithy they tell, hit arna boot on this bench, but beardless childer. If e were hasp in arms on a hay stead, here is no man made to match for me to so wake. For thee crave in this court a Christmas gomen, for hit is Yule, and New Year, and here are yep money. If any so hardy in this house holdeth himself in, be so bold in his blood, brain in his head, that dar stiffly strike a stroke for another, I shall give him of my gift this discerned reach, this axe, that is heavy enough to handle as him likes, and I shall bid the first burr as bara as I sitte. If any freke be so fella to fonde that I telle, lepe leastly me too, and latch this weapon. I quit claim hit forever, keep it as his own, and I shall stonde him a stroke stiff on this flate, elles thou will dicht me the dom to delle him an other barling. And yet if him respite a 12-month and a day. Now here, and let's sit tight, dar any herein ought say. So the Green Knight has challenged the court's pride, called them beardless children. He wants a Christmas game. His challenge is a head-cutting game. Cut off my head, and agree to let me cut yours off, and you get my axe. But, just to be nice, you can cut mine off next New Year, a year and a day from now. If hae him stoned upon first, stiller were thana, alla the herod men in Halle, the hia and the loch, the rank on his ronse him rooted in his saddle, and runishly his red Ian, he related aboot, bende his breasted broch, bluk and the grain, waved his beard for to wait coso would risa. When none would cape him with carp, he coughed full high, and reamed him full richly, and richt him to spake. What? Is this Arthur's house, quoth the Hathel then, that all the roos renners of third realms so money? Where is now your sorquadry and your conquestes, your Grindelach and your Grema, and your great awards? Now is the revel and the renown of the Round Table. Or what, with a word of unweeha speech, for all dares for dread without dint shewed. With this he laughs so lude that the Lorde graved, the blood shot from sham into his sheer face and lair. He wax as wroth as wunde, so did alla that there were. The king as kenna be kinder, then stood that stiff mon near. Ande said, Hathel, be heaven. Then asking is niece, as though fully hadst freest, funde they behoves. I know no goma that is gast of thy great wordes. Give me now thee gesern upon God's halve, and I shall bathe in thy bona that thou boden habes. Lately leapes he him too, and laughed at his honde. Then fiercely that other frake upon foot leatus. Now hats Arthur his axe, and the helm griepus, and sternly stirreth it about, that streake with it thought. The stiff mon him before stood upon heat, herre than any in the house by the head and more. With sterne share there he stood, he stroked his beard, and with a countenance drea he drove down his coat. No more mate nae dismayed, for his main dintes than any burn upon bench had brought him to drink of wine. Gawain, that sat be the queen, to the king he can incline. I beseech now, with say senna, this melee mot be mine. Arthur is very unhappy with the mockery, so much so that he offers to take up the knight's game. But you can't do that. Arthur is the king. We can't lose our king in a year with his head getting cut off. Can't even risk it. I mean, obviously we're going to cut off the other guy's head, so this probably isn't going to happen, but even so, not going to risk it. So Gawain nobly interrupts and asks that the melee be his. Would ye, worthleach lord, quoth Gawain to the king, bid me both fro this bench and stand by you there, that I without villainy might void this table, and that me liege lady licked not illa, I would come to your council before your court reache, for me think it not seemly, as it is soft known, there such as an asking as heaven so here in your sala, that ye yourself be talentive to take it to yourself, will money so bold you about upon bench sitting, that under heaven I hope no hearer of will, na better bodies on bent there bearet is word. I am the wackest I wot, and of wit fablest, and less to lure of me lief, whole lattice the sotha, but for as much as ye are mean I am only to praise, no bounty but your blood in me body, no. And sithen this note is so nice that nocht ye follows, and ye have franed hit at you first, foldes hit to me, and if ye carp not comely, let all of this court reach bout blame. Rich together con run, and soothen they read in all sama, to rude the king with croon, and yif go on the game. Gawain says there's many that are stronger than him and wiser than him in the court, but he kindly begs it. We of course know this is not true. Gawain is the king's heir, and one of the greatest knights of the Round Table, but he is also showing his humility, and he is given the game by Arthur. Then commanded the king the knecht for to rise, and he full rambly uprose, and rooted him fair, nailed down before the king, and catches that weapon, and he luftily hit him laft, and lift up his hand, and yef him God's blessing, and gladly him biddest that his heart and his hand should hardy they be both. Cape they, cousin, quoth the king, that thou on curf sette, and if thou raidest him recht, readily I trow that thou shalt bidden the bur that he shall bid after. Gawain got to the gom with Gazern in hand, and he bodily him biddest, he best never the helder. Then carpus to Sir Gawain, the knecht in the grain. Reform we or forwards, ere we first for pass. First I eth they, Hathel, how that thou hattest that thou may tell truly, as I treast may. In good faith, quoth the good knecht, Gawain, I hatte, that bed the these buffet, whatso befall us after, and at this time 12 month, take at they an other, with what weapons so thou wilt, and with no wee else unleave. That other answeres again, Sir Gawain, so mote he thrive, as I am fairly fain, this dint that thou shalt drive. The Green Knight asks whom will be the one to strike him, and Gawain introduces himself and agrees to the conditions of the game. Begog, quoth the Grey Knight, Sir Gawain, me likes that I shall fange at the first that I have rest here, and thou hadst readily rehearsed, be reasonful true, cleanly o the covenant that I the king asked. Saf that thou shalt sicker me, sage, be the troth, that thou shalt set me thyself, whereso thou hopest I may be funde upon fulde, and fetch by such wages, as thou dillest me today before this doth reacha. Where should I walladay, quoth Gawain. Where is the plaza? I wot never where thou one yes, be him that may rot. Nay, I know not they, knecht, be court ne the nama, but take me truly thereto, and tell me how thou hattest, and I shall wara alla me wicht to winna me there. On that I swear they forsotha, and be me seker troweth. That is enough in New Year. Het needest no more, quoth the gom in the grain to Gawain the hinde. If I they tell truly, when I the tapa have, and thou me smoothly had smeten, smartly I they teacha of me house, and me home, and me owen noma, then may thou frayest me fara, and forwardes holde. And if he spende no speech, then a spadest thou the better, for thou may lang in the land and late no fear. But slocus, ta now the groome told to thee, and let's say how thou knockest. Gladly, sir, forsooth, quoth Gawain, his axe he strokes. Gawain has asked the Green Knight, I don't know you. How do I find you in a year? What's your name? And the Green Knight replies, I'll tell you that after you hit me. Basically, in short. The grain knecht upon grund gradely him dresses, a little loot with the head, the lair he discovereth. His longo lovely shlockas he laid over his croon, let the naked neck to the nut sure. Gawain gripped to his axe, and getters hit on heat. The kay foot on the folder he before sette, let him down licht on the naked, that the sharp of the shulk shindered the bones, and shrank through the sheer grass, and shad a hit in twin, that the bit of the broon stale bot on the ground. The fair head fro the halse hit to the earth, that felle hit foned with her fate, there hit forth rolled the blood braid fro the body, that blooked on the grain. And nother faltered ne fell the frake never the helder, but stoothly he start forth upon stiff shonks, and runishly he rat out, there as Rinke studden, last to his loofly head, and lift hit up sona. And soothen boyest to his blonk, the bridle he catches, steppes into stallbow, and strides aloft, and his head be the hair in his hand holdus, and as sandly as the sedge him in his saddle set, as none unhap had him ailed, the headless he were instead. He braid his bulk about, that ugly body that bled. Money on of him had duta, that be that his rusen were red. The Green Knight very calmly kneels and moves his hair out of the way so that Gawain can strike his neck. And Gawain does so deftly that the axe hits the ground, and we go from a somewhat serious game to like, oh, this is a joke, to, oh my gosh, there's a head rolling around Camelot, and people are kicking it back and forth in terror when the body stands, picks up the head, gets back on the horse, and looks at them all. Well, makes the head look at them all, I guess. The body's still bleeding. For the head in his hand he held us up even. Toward the dearest on the dais he dresses the face, and hit luft up the eyelids, and looked full broad, and melled thus much with his mouthe, as ye may now hear. Look, Gawain, thou begraith to go as thou hettest, and late as lily till thou may, lude, fiende, as thou hadst hette in this halle, herande these nichtes, to the grain chapel thou chose. I charge thee, to fote such a dunt as thou hadst dalt, deserved thou habest, to be yearly jolden, a New Year's morn. The knecht of the grain chapel, men knowen me money. For thee may for to finde, if thou freestest, valest thou never, therefore come, other krant bekalde they behovas. With a runish root the reines he tornes. Hollowed out at the hall door, his head in his hand, that the furre of the flint flye fra full hovas. To what couth he become knued none there, never more than thou wicht from quethin he what's wonnen. What then? The king and go on there, at that grain they lay and grinna. Yet braved what's it full bara, a mever among the mena. The Green Knight holds up the head and has it address the dais, and reminds Gawain of their deal, and says, look for me at the Green Chapel. They know me as the Knight of the Green Chapel. I'll see you in a year. And exits Camelot. Thou Arthur, the hende king, at her had wonder. He let no semblant be seen, but said full here to the comely queen, with courteous speech, there, dame, today de may yow never. Well become as such craft upon Christmas, laking of interluders, to laugh and to sing. Among this kinde carolers of knightes and ladies, nevertheless to my mate I may well dress, for I have seen a silly, I may not forsake. He glent upon Sir Gawain, and gainly he said, now, sir, hang up thine axe, that hat's enough hewn, and it was done above the dais on dosser to hang. There all men for mervel meet on ich look, and be through a title thereof, to tell of the wonder. Then they both to aboard these burns together. The king and the good knecht, and kenne men him served, of alle dainties double, as derech micht falle, with alle manner of mate and minstrel say both, with welle wat they that die, to warther and end in Londe. Now, think well, Sir Gawain, for wothe that thou ne wonder, this adventure for to frain, that thou hadst ten on Honda. There's that awkward moment as the Green Knight leaves and Arthur's like, there's an awkward laugh basically. And Arthur goes, well, don't freak out, Guinevere. It's all okay. He's gone. We're just having fun. I guess I can eat now because I've seen a marvel. Gawain, put the axe down. Let everyone admire it for a bit, and let's enjoy our time together. And we end with a direct address to Gawain to think about what's coming for him. That ends Passus 1 of Gawain and the Green Knight. I will see you later for Passus 2.